So we can mute our phones and we'll get started with that minute now. And that was a minute. It's amazing when you're quiet, how long a minute can be and how helpful it can be as you're transitioning to the next thing. And so just wanted to bring all of our attention to this hour that we'll have together. I'm really looking forward to this time as we are focused on student voice, you know, and from where I sit and from my perspective, it's really the most important voice when we're looking at change and things that are happening. Before we jump in, just a little bit of housekeeping to keep in mind as we prepare for our hour together. So the way that this will flow, it's a community conversation. We will hear from about 4, we'll say, panelists this evening, sharing their experiences with HCPS. We have a few questions that we have talked to them about that we know that they will share, and they all have been advocates in their own right. What we've tried to do different from last time was to create a little bit more time for questions. It's hard to get it all done in an hour, but we really try to follow the flow of our family learning series that we traditionally do. But we will have time for questions. So what we'll say on your screen to the top left corner, you likely see a chat box. There you will see a link that will be shared throughout the evening. And so if you have a question or even a comment, if you can put it there, we have staff that are really working to summarize the questions and they're getting it to me real time. And so our goal is to answer as many questions as possible. We'll try to save our Q&A towards the end, but if something comes up, feel free to drop it in as it comes to your mind, because if it fits in a certain place, I'll be sure to share that out. We'll also say, just to keep in mind that if you can mute your phones, I know we have a lot of people on the call, but if you can stay muted, that would be helpful. There was a sign-in link that was sent earlier as well. If you can fill that out for us just so that we can know who all is in the room, that would be helpful. And then last, I would just say all of our panelists, they're students. We have one who's a recent graduate. And so just as you're preparing, several calls to actions are being across the region. You know, these are from parents, these are from young people, and just people who understand the unique time that we're in and the opportunities that we have for change. Another happening is the creation, and I'm not sure if you all are aware, it was brought to my attention this weekend, but it's an Instagram page, Black at HCPS. I will be transparent and say I spent most of my weekend heartbroken reading through all of the posts that were shared there. It's a collection of experiences from current students, past students, and some of our staff. And so while it was alarming to me to hear about some of the experiences that we've had, of course, I had to say, well, where's the hopeful part in this, right? And for me, the hopeful bit is, and I'll see if I can stop this, the hopeful bit is, how do we drive this to change? What's the opportunity that we have when we see the experiences that are glaring in our face? What are things that we can do? And so as I read them over a second time, I said, you know what, a lot of these concerns and issues are things that if we put our minds together, we can really do something about. And so I've chosen to be hopeful. I'll have to say I was glad to see that things are coming to light. And I don't know who's behind it, but I want to say thank you to them for taking the time to just create that platform to, as they say, amplify voices. So I think that's another significant happening since we were last together in 2 weeks. So again, the goal of this is that conversation will really drive us to action. So without further ado, we have some amazing young people who are here with us tonight. I always let folks know, we may not change the world in this time, but our hope is to really inspire others. I think that we have some additional young people in the room. And so even if you're there and you're not a panelist, ask a question, feel free to drop your comments in the chat as well. But we are going to get started with a few different young people that we have. First, we are starting with Henry. Henry, I think you're on the main screen, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Henry, welcome. Henry is a sophomore at Freeman, and I'll have to say thank you to Henry for not just being a leader in the current efforts that are happening, but just simply rising to the occasion whenever called. I will also share that I first heard of Henry a few years ago through a TED Talk. And he was impressive then, and I'm just as impressed by his involvement and just staying committed to the causes that are happening in our community. So without me telling everything that you're doing, Henry, would you just kind of talk about your commitment to changing the culture of schools even during this racially tense time here nationally, but specifically with here at Henrico County?
Well, I think it was really good timing that the whole pandemic thing happened, because all of us students have nothing but time. So I don't think we could have organized so many people if it hadn't been for, not going to school or not doing anything else.
That's so very true. And so when you talk about organizing, you've been very busy. Your summer has been full with a lot of organizing. And I do understand just recently there were protests at Freeman. Will you tell everyone on the call that may not be aware of just the nature of the protests and just how it all came to be?
Absolutely. After the death of George Floyd and the appalling but not surprising inaction that followed, the Black Student Union and the History and Human Rights Club at Freeman got together over Zoom to talk about everything that was happening and anything that we could do at Freeman, because we know and we recognize that Freeman has like deep-rooted ties to the Confederacy, and it's not just the mascot. So we wanted to change something, so we got the two clubs together, and we decided we would do a demonstration on the front lawn on what would have been the last day of school.
Okay, so this was, and you said this is the Black Student Alliance, and who was the other group?
History and Human Rights Club.
Okay, so the two groups got together and actually organized the protest.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in addition to that, as we're talking about being active or activism and then kind of driving that to action, I was equally as impressed when I saw that you did an 8-point action plan. And so I have it on a slide. I want to share it there, but if you could talk through some of the components to folks who are here in the room or who may be watching on recording later, and just share, I guess, the nature of the action plan that you all created. And I'll pull that up while you're talking.
Mm-hmm. So it's 8 points, and I first presented it as a 6-point plan at the protest. And since then, we've talked to Mr. Marshall, our principal, and some other administrators, and we've kind of elaborated on it. The first one is discipline, and it's to end zero tolerance policies with school resource officers, and to make excessive punishments like suspension and expulsion the last resort. It's also to make any decisions on discipline anonymous, so there's no bias from the decision maker. The second one is AP and honors integration. I'm not going to elaborate on this one that much because I think some other panelists will. But I've noticed there are hardly any black people and people of color in honors and AP classes, especially at Freeman, which I find disturbing given the diversity at the actual school. There's no diversity in the upper level classes. The third thing is an online reporting system, an anonymous one for racist or insensitive comments. I think there is one already, but I never heard of it. and I don't know anyone who's used it, so we've got to, you know, hone in on that and make sure the Black students know that we're on their side. The fourth one is a student forum, where students can talk about race, and it would kind of be like what's happening right now and what's going to happen next Monday, but it would be school by school. So I'm glad this is happening now. The fifth one is a series of assemblies about Black history and including present components like mass incarceration and the death penalty and police brutality and stuff. Assemblies would go on throughout the year, but students would only have to attend one, so that they would go to one they're interested in and not just tune out. The next one is getting students to read books, short stories, and articles by Black authors, so that they know what's happening in the real world. The seventh is making every student watch the 13th documentary, because I feel like if students don't know about mass incarceration and what Michelle Alexander calls the new Jim Crow, they're, in my opinion, not educated enough to graduate. And number 8 is trying to get an African history course at Freeman High School, because we have an AP Euro, a European history course. But I think if students want to learn about African history, they shouldn't have to go to extracurricular stuff like this.
Wow, thank you, Henry. I really appreciated the thoughtfulness, of this plan. And I have questions about, how did you all create it? Was it co-created? Was it collaborative? Just how did you all decide the different points that you all chose to mention for the plan?
Well, a few days before the protest actually happened, I realized that we should probably have some demands, so that, when Mr. Marshall was attending, he wouldn't just sit there and be like, well, what was that for? I came up with 6 of them. I don't know which 6, I don't remember. And then I gave that as a speech, and then we talked to Mr. Marshall about it, and at that point it was collaborative. So we really expanded on the points and made them a lot better and added 2 more.
Wow. So I hope you take some time to look at the comments about how impressive the action items are and how impressive you are, how thoughtful and intentional that was as well. I think oftentimes, and I feel like I had a similar reaction as you did, sometimes when things happen, it's a minute where you might feel a little hopeless. I know how I felt reading some of the comments this weekend on that Instagram, but I had to stop to say, well, what can I do? What's within my power? How can I continue the conversation to move to change? And I can only imagine your principal sitting down with a group of students and receiving this plan. And I would imagine the amount of pride that he had to know that you all are really learning the right things when you're trying to drive things to action. Henry, let's see. I have one other question for you. Well, I wanted to bring to light as well. So you did a bit of an art project too, in conjunction with the protest. Will you share what that was about? And again, another creative way about how to drive change and awareness.
Well, it's a big, giant, colorful sign. It's in my front yard right now. I think it's about 50 feet wide. And it has the names of black men and women killed by cops in the past few years since Eric Garner. Most of them are innocent and unarmed, and it's a incomprehensive list. So in the middle it says "No More" in big bold letters, and I brought it to the protest. And after all the speeches, 8 of us got and held the stakes and brought them out of the ground and held them for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And can I just say, 8 minutes and 46 seconds of commemorative silence is a hell of a lot longer than I would expect.
Yes, it is. It is. I'm just so appreciative of hearing about the community that you all as students are building there at Freeman, despite all of the attention that you all are getting. I was happy to hear that a few groups had worked together to bring about the change. And just thank you for being one of several leaders, in that group. And we just appreciate you, Henry. I can't say I can't wait to see what happens when you grow up, because as far as I can see, you are living into your purpose by what you're doing right now. So thank you so much, Henry. And what we'll do, if anyone is able to, anyone on staff can even drop a few of the articles and things that have been out to just share the work. And we'll get into it a little bit later. You mentioned it, but there is a youth rally. Is that the one that you were mentioning that's coming up? No, Monday. You were talking about, we've got so many great things happening. You're talking about the Students for Change event. Yes. Okay. We'll get to that. We will. Jay Sean will talk about that a little bit later. But thank you so much, Henry.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, you know, you could do an hour with each of these young people, truly. But next up, we have London Hart. London, I think I see you on the main screen also. Now you all, London is in the 7th grade, okay? 7th grade, has been doing some newsworthy things in her community, all centered around Black Lives Matter. And so, London, I heard about you about a month ago. I think I was reading the Henrico Citizen, and I read the story, and then I saw you were an HPPS student and had an extreme amount of pride when I saw what you were doing. And so I don't want to steal your thunder. I would love for you to just share out what you've been doing for the last month or so as it relates to the Black Lives Matters movement.
So back when the protests were really first getting started after the George Floyd incident, I was having a conversation with my parents about like what was happening and around the community. So we were talking about the racism and discrimination against the Black community and how that has been pretty bad. That night I was really just painting and I was expressing how I felt, and we posted a picture of it online, and people were asking to buy my art, and it was getting expensive to do on canvases. So we saw a bonfire, and it would take my art and turn it into t-shirts. I was very glad about this because it was a great way to spread the message for people all over the nation to wear my art. And I'm still selling them, and I've sold 750 shirts, and I've raised over $4,000 with 100% of the proceeds going to the Black Lives Matter movement.
Wow. I just want to just give a moment to sit in that. You've raised $4,000. I'm right. I see some claps, right? $4,000. And how many shirts? 750 shirts that she's made. And all proceeds are being donated to Black Lives Matter. I see someone, where can I get one? I want to order one. A lot of comments coming. If someone can drop that in the chat, I'll share. When I first heard about it, they had already sold out, but it sounds like you're in demand now, London, right?
Yes.
Open up to do more. Something that you just said, and I'm just curious because I'm a mom. I have a 7-year-old, but you know, there are things that you know you want to talk about with young people, but I'm often curious. I'm glad that you said you were able to have conversations with your parents. And I guess, how did that feel for you? Do you feel like you asked questions and they listened? Just how was that, having conversations about things that you may not have really understood?
So really what it was is we sat down and I started asking questions about like what was going on. We went into we looked at pictures of all the people and who they were, match faces with names, and kind of went through like some of the situations and like what's going on around.
I love it. Thank you. I think a lot of parents have been wondering just how do you do it and how do you have conversations? So I was just curious to hear from you, you know, from a student perspective. Another question I have for you, because something that you did, you really took that moment and you drove it to inspiration and motivation. So what happened in that moment from, I guess, being saddened about the news to I want to do something, and then kind of actually doing it? What was that? What were those moments like?
Well, the moment really flows through my art more than like what I did or how I performed it. So recently I found out that I got into advanced art, which really helped me, and it like made me feel more confidence to share my art publicly so people could see my viewpoint and the Black Lives Matter movement. So hopefully this moment would like inspire people to show, even in expressing your feelings through art or any way, can make a big difference and like all around.
Wow. Awesome. Congratulations for getting into that art program. They have I wouldn't even say a rising star. They have a star amongst them for sure. Um, and I also like the beauty of using creativity to drive change. You know, what's been really unique and what we've been seeing in Richmond and in this area is the use of art and music and just all of the different creative means that people are using to express themselves. And so I'm glad that you were able to do so. I'm sure, and I'm not sure if you've been in contact with your classmates, but I'm sure they're super proud of you and your ability to do that. So when we get back to school in the fall, you're gonna get a lot of attention for sure for your leadership. My last question, when you look at what advocacy is, it's basically public support or a recommendation of a particular cause or policy. That might not mean anything to you, London, but that's the definition. So London, you're an advocate in my eyes. What advice do you have for other people, students, they could be your age, older or younger, or even for adults who are really finding their way and looking for inspiration or just how to get something started?
So what I would probably tell them is to find something that they're passionate about so you can like work for it and have like a bunch of motivation towards it. For instance, like if you're like doing a bake sale, you could do, or if you're like baking, you could do a bake sale and donate your proceeds. If you're a runner, you could run miles, get people to pledge money. If you like singing, you could do a virtual concert. There's so many different ways that you can like just help out by your different strengths and talents.
Yep, that's it. London, thank you so much for sharing your background. I think I even saw your father drop the right there. So it's in the chat, you all. If you all want to support, you'll be supporting one of our young artists, but you're also supporting the Black Lives Matter movement by doing that. So London, thank you for your time. I know you're going to hang out too if there are questions that come up for you as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we are going to, let's see, Xanatul, are you here in the room? I thought I saw you earlier.
Yes, I'm here.
How are you? Good to see you again.
Good to see you. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. One thing I really enjoy about doing these panels is I get to have really short but still informative conversations with everyone before we get on a full call. And so, I was happy to hear, and I just learned that Xanatu actually recently graduated. So a round of applause for that. So thank you for still being so committed to your school community and joining us here to share a bit of your experiences. One thing that's really unique about your background is that you often hear about this tale of two counties in Henrico, where you have our West End experiences and then also our East End experiences. But you actually were a student, your main school was Deep Run, but then you were also at the A Center in Highland Springs Elementary School, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask you to, being that you were a Deep Run student and also were at the A Center, can you just speak to your experiences? Can you just speak to your experiences?
Definitely the biggest difference between the two schools is that Deep Run is a very homogenous environment. It's very much like, I felt like the minority at Deep Run. Whereas with Highland Springs, it was so much like my classroom at the A Center, it was a mix of West End students, so socioeconomically it was diverse, and also ethnically and racially it was diverse. So in Highland Springs, I just felt more comfortable sharing, my viewpoints and my perspectives, and I definitely got a lot more variety in viewpoints as well. I got that as well in that sense, and I became more educated, and it was easier to communicate my opinions as well as hear my fellow students' opinions as well. Whereas with Deep Run, I just felt like as a minority, it's really hard for your voice to get heard when all you see is like, when the room is filled with people that are think differently from you, or there's a majority of people who think differently from you or don't you know, aren't like you, and it's just you feel it's much more difficult for you to speak up, and it takes a lot more confidence to speak up. And so overall, basically the main difference is that I felt more comfortable and I learned more in a diverse environment at the A Center. And at Deep Run, what happened was I often got shut down, or I was on the defensive position on any, viewpoints I wanted to share. So that's a huge difference, I'd say, between the two schools.
Yeah, I think it's great that thank you for sharing that too. I think you bring up some really good points, just the value of diversity, the value of having different voices in the room, not necessarily to prove a point, but just to share different experiences. I think a lot of times we learn by immersion when it comes to things. And so the fact that you had different experiences at either is very significant. One thing that we talked about was just your identity. And Xanatul shared that she identifies as a Bangladesh American Muslim young woman. Yet she's experienced these different and unique school communities. I think in that context, were there unique bits about your experiences in that context that you would want to share out with the group?
I definitely would say that at Highland Springs, because it was a more diverse group and because I felt more accepted there, it was easier for me to, speak out when I felt uncomfortable, or, if something was wrong, or, a lot of times immigrants or people of color, they experience casual racism, or, casual, it's just casual discrimination. And, we're just told to accept it, or we just, swallow it because, like, oh, when is the right time to speak out? It's never convenient to speak out. So in Highland Springs, I just felt like it was so much easier for me to, talk to someone about if I ever felt that way. Whereas with Deep Run, it was like, when do I speak out? Or when is the right time? I just didn't feel as comfortable to, share my, if I did feel uncomfortable, I didn't feel ready or didn't know when to, say those things, is, I guess, the huge difference there. And yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I think when you talk about how those experiences just allow you to kind of step into your voice a bit more, I'm just grateful to have you on the call too, especially since you've had those different experiences. And sometimes going through that, it kind of makes you sit up a little bit more, lean into that voice that you have. So we just appreciate you coming here to share that out with us. I'm sure there are others who may have been in situations like yours, whether they are in both East and West End, whether they are struggling in the East End or struggling in the West End of using their voice and finding that to move things to change. What would you say to students who may be on the call or who may look at it later about what would you say to students who are really maybe struggling with how to use their unique voice in times such as this?
I think the most important and the easiest way to really contribute to this movement is to educate yourself, because, a lot of the times, especially in the West End community, the issue isn't that students are inherently bad, or they're trying to be ignorant, or like they're trying to be, racist. It's the fact that they're just not educated on these issues. So it's not that they're bad people, it's just they need to be aware. And this is the easiest and most effective way I can think of, is if you educate yourself. So if you see something or you hear something on the news and you don't know, like Juneteenth, for example, it's like this huge thing, and so many people don't know about it, and it's shocking and very sad. But if you didn't know that before, then it is like your job to educate yourself, and that's the only way we're going to grow and further ourselves as a community. So I think that's the biggest piece of advice that I have for students in this call.
And I think your advice is universal, so that's a charge to students, but that's a charge to myself as a staff member. It's a charge to parents who are here on the call. And then even our community members who are here, you know, educating yourself from where you are. I mean, you all are really giving some nuggets. I'm thinking about what London said earlier about finding your passion and leading with that. But I really like that, what you're saying about just educate yourself on topics that you want a little bit more of. So again, thank you so much for being here with us. Congratulations again on graduation. We're hopeful that you still continue to pour back into your school community as you're doing today, because I really think your experiences will help another child to feel that much more comfortable as they're moving through their school year. So again, thank you. And Xanatu will be on the call too. I hope that you all are filling out the link with any questions that you have. We have one more panelist that we're going to get to, and then we're really going to open it up for us to have more of a conversation with others who are here in the room. So next up, we are going to Hermitage High School. Jay Sean, I see you on the screen. You all, Jay Sean is a rising senior at Hermitage, and he has been involved with the NAACP for approximately 4 years. He said as long as his mom had been involved, and I know how that is too, Jay Sean. But we're just so glad to have you here with us. I will have to share, I first heard Jay Sean at the Henrico Call to Action, and he was on the stage. He provided a very powerful poem. If anyone was there, you probably will know him from that. But just really wanted to invite him here on the panel. Yes, I see some claps. Maybe we'll get him to do it for us tonight. We'll see. But you know, Jay Sean, thank you so much for being here. So without me jumping into who you are, if you could even share who you are, how you identify as a young person, and then what your experiences have been here in HCPS.
You. Hi, everyone. I'm Jay Sean. I am an East End student, and I'm proud of that. I am a Black gay activist. I am a voice for my community, and I expect to always be that voice. I love to stand up for others, of course, and myself. And I'm part of the theater program. And no, I am not in the center. I am a true Hermitage kid. I'm not a center kid. So these, when I give you my answers, this is coming from my heart, and this is coming from everything that I've experienced.
Absolutely. Well, Jay Sean, that's all we want. You know, we want your openness, your honesty, and about your unique experiences. So we're glad that you're here. You shared earlier when we talked that you were active. I think you just said that as well. And you said you use your voice a lot, right? And that felt good for me to hear that you use your voice a lot. Where did that come from for you? Was it, you know, something your parents instilled in you? Just what supports you in using your voice often?
So since I was a little kid, my mother, my family have always like engraved in us that you have a voice and you will use it. They have always taught us right from right and wrong from wrong. And I have always been told to, if you see something, say something, do something, don't just sit there. My parents have always made sure that I understood that, and I made sure that I carry out that image that they implanted in my head every day. So
I love it. I love it. I love it. How has your experience been at Hermitage? Talk to us about your life there, how things have been. I believe you're a student leader as well. So talk to us about your experiences at Hermitage.
okay, so I'm gonna give y'all the truth. I'm gonna give y'all 100% honesty. Yes, I love my school. Yes, I love Hermitage. It's at first, my ninth grade year, I went to Highland Springs. And 10th grade, I moved over here to the Hermitage area. So now I go to Hermitage High School. It is a big difference. It is in a lot of ways. So my experience at Hermitage, it has not always been great because I have to deal with counselors that don't support you, that don't help you. I have to deal with adults looking down on me because I am a Black student. So they expect that I do not want more for my life. So they automatically think that I don't want to take those extra SOLs or those extra classes. No, I may not be a center kid, but I'm not dumb. I know what I know. Okay, I take advanced classes. So it hurts a lot when I'm looked down upon because of the color of my skin, and also my identity, because they think just because I am a gay Black man that I don't understand, or that I can't comprehend, that I don't matter. I have to live my life in fear walking down those hallways, because many times I walk down those hallways and a group of white kids have threatened me or my friend. I walk down that hallway, the same exact hallway, and I've overheard conversations about them talking about us. They have yelled in the hallways, "Oh, let me go get the news," while me and my friends are walking down these hallways. Me and my friends have been so scared at times we have to run away from white crowds because we fear that they are purposely trying to start stuff. Because we know if they start stuff, they will not be punished the correct way. We will be punished because if we retaliate. So no, all my friends at Hermitage have not been cookie cutter happy, because we know that there are problems. We have reported to the office multiple times of injustice and things that we feel that are wrong, and we have been pushed away and ignored. Many times we have heard of teachers saying inappropriate words like the N-word, talking to students inappropriately. We go to the office, they tell us that they're going to do something, they tell us that they're going to set an appointment with Dr. Jackson. We never get that appointment. We've been in classes with students who mistreat us or talk about us. We report it. We never get those appointments that they say that they're going to set with us. We never get back to. Dr. Jackson can only do so much. And when he gets word, it's because we personally went up to him when we see him. And he sits down and have conversations with us. But he can only do so much by himself.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot to sit there and talk about. And when you have students that are not even listened to, it hurts even more, because I can only speak for myself. I cannot speak for everybody, but I am the only Black panelist today. So it is a lot of pressure to make sure that I get everybody's stories heard, because being a Hermitage student, you not only have to fear for the kids, but you also have to fear for the SROs. And don't get me wrong, because we want our SROs in our school, because we know that we need them. We know that. But it's when you have SROs in the schools that don't even attempt to get to know you, they don't even attempt to build relationships with you. They're just walking down the hallways with guns. You know they have guns when they threaten to pepper spray you because you get into altercations. They threaten to tase you. That's scary.
Absolutely.
It's a lot.
Absolutely.
So what we want training. We want conversations to be had. So no, I and nobody that I know of, no Black students were included into that conversation about the SRO that was had. I know many people that was part of that conversation was like, take them out to schools. No, we do not want them out to schools. We just want better training.
Yeah. Yes. Wow. Jay Sean, I just want to, in this moment, affirm you and say that we are here with you, all 129 people on this call. We hear you loud and clear. We value you speaking your truth. And we believe that your truth is likely the truth of many other students. It takes a lot of bravery to speak and to use your voice. But as you told me earlier, you use your voice a lot. And I'm so grateful for you using it here on this platform. You know, I'm a bit newer to Henrico, and so I'm learning a lot. You know, but I'll have to say, you know, something feels different about right now. You know, I think that the voices are so loud, they're amplified so much that you all are students, those most, you know, intimately impacted by the issues are going to drive the change. And so, Jay Sean, I'm looking at you. You are driving change right now by speaking your voice. You have an audience of over 100 people who are hearing you. And I can tell by the faces that I see on my screen who are empathizing with you. and will also support you in driving this to change. So I want to tell you to stay strong. I think you have my phone number now since we've done the panel. And so you use my number and you reach out to me when you need us. You had some really good points about it's got to be more than one person, and again, for me, it goes back to it's the work of our students and our parents and our schools and our community. But you pulled out so many nuggets there, and we're recording this. And again, we take notes and we're documenting things and driving it to action. But Jay Sean, I just want to say that I appreciate you for being that voice here this evening.
Thank you.
You need to read your poem. I would love for everyone to hear it. But would you like to share your poem that I think also speaks to your experiences? Are you open to sharing that with the individuals that are here on the call?
Yes, I would love to share my poem.
Thank you.
So it is titled, What About Me by Me. I can't breathe. I can't breathe in this country. I feel so trapped and enclosed, and I'm trying to break the code to my sanity, but I feel that it's not even there anymore because it's
Did Jay Sean freeze for you all? Oh, hold on. Let me see. Can we contact them? Okay. Hopefully he'll go off and come back, and we'll have him do his poem when he returns. I want to be mindful of time, and so hopefully Jay Sean will drop off and come back in. But we have a few amazing things that are happening. One of those big things, and as Jay Sean mentioned, he's very involved with the NAACP here, and they've stood up, which is going to be a very powerful event that's going to be next week. I'm going to pull up the flyer and information for you all. The purpose behind it is to really have a space outside of schools, again, very similar to what I see at the Black at HCPS, but to have a safe space where young people can go into breakout groups, have some additional time for, give me 1 second, go into breakout groups, have some additional time to really share their feelings and opinions, and they're going to use that and drive that to a call for action. Do you all see the information on the screen? Okay. So this is happening next Monday, June 29th, HCPS Students for Change. It's going to be a mix of virtual meetings. Students will be able to share their ideas and their opinions, and then they will really define their ideas to really move change for HCPS and Henrico County. It's a joint effort, and it's really sponsored by the Henrico chapter of the NAACP. Our diversity office has really been taking a lead on it. Our family and community engagement department has been involved as well. And we're hopeful to really have students who are involved and centered there. There will be student facilitators to lead the conversation as well. And so again, here's the flyer. Please stay posted to social media and information. If you have signed up through the sign-in sheet, we'll have that information as well. But I want to jump back, Jay Sean, I think I see you on the screen now. If you can hop back in to give us your poem, and then I'm going to go through some of our questions for panelists.
all right. I apologize, everyone. I gotta find it again. I had it. All right. Can y'all hear me? All right. It's titled, What About Me by Me. I can't breathe. I can't breathe in this country. I feel so trapped and enclosed. And I'm trying to break the code to my sanity, but I fear that it's not even there anymore because it's been driven away by the chase of racism and hate. And let's not say racism is a disease, but it can spread drastically. And I'm not talking about no park. See, I can't go to no park without being torn apart. See, this month is ultra hard. This isn't just a month for riots for my man Floyd. This is supposed to be a month for me to enjoy. Yes, being Black in America is hard, but being Black and gay, that ride never stops. So as they're riding, I'm being stomped. The same Black men that march have no love for me in their hearts. No justice, no peace. But is there ever justice for me? Is there ever peace for me? See, I get hunted by cops. And when I run to my fellow Black brothers' arms, I get tossed. So no, I cannot breathe because I feel like I'm stuck in a box. And my four walls are not just being blocked by cops. So when you read that list of Black men that have been shot, let's bring awareness to a Black man named Tony McDay. See, just 5 days ago, he lost his life by cops that felt he was threatening theirs. But see, that was a lie. They played victim as if they just ain't take a life. The only reason Tony had a weapon was because just a little while before, some Black men used their force to try to put out Tony's torch. And before he could even explain, the cops took his life away. So just like Floyd and many others, he cannot breathe. It's a breathless symphony, and I'm hyperventilating because I see that could have been me. So if you're out there protesting, remember me, because this now needs to be a we. Because I won't just be killed by the color of my skin, but also because of my identity. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you, Jay Sean. Thank you for sharing so much of yourself this evening. You and all of our panelists, our hearts are hearing you beyond our ears. And just thank you so much for that. You all, I try to stay on time every time, but it doesn't happen. But I do want to bring up some of the questions that are coming from the chat, and I will try to jump in with some of the ones that I know are directed to our youth. So I'm looking at some of these. First, there was a question: how do we find out details about the call to action? My thinking is that you're talking about. This is probably Henry's call to action. Henry, is there a public place? I think you may have it on an Instagram post, but is there a public place where folks want to see more details about the call to action that you created?
I have a Google document that I can put in the chat.
Okay. That would
And
be
Mhm.
That would be helpful. And then, for folks who are on Instagram, if you want to share that link that I think had the information there, because I know a lot of people are interacting there, that would be helpful.
Okay, I'll put the link to the Instagram post on the Google Doc.
Okay, awesome. All right. Another question that I think is an important question, and I'm glad it came up, and this would be something I would answer. Why were there not more African Americans on the panel? And I think it came up from the chat. Thank you all for bringing that up. I know one thing that I've learned when you're doing anything, you can't do it right. You can do it wrong, but you may not always get it right. A bit of feedback that I received, and not from many, but when we did the first panel, we had all Black panelists at the last one. So I got a little bit of pushback about that. Why were there only Black panelists? For me, it was important in that moment to really center Black experiences as we started this journey. And that doesn't exclude any other voices, right? And so what I wanted to do with this panel was to make sure that we had a variety of voices, and as much as not so much about race, but really looking at some of the schools where we know we're hearing from individuals even a little bit more. So I really tried to use that to guide how we set up the panel. What I'm glad to say is I really do think our Black students are talking. You'll see much of it at the Black at HCPS site. But I think something that's just as important right now is for our Black students to know that they're supported by their classmates and by their allies as well. So that was my reasoning, right or wrong, but wanted to share that here, and thank you all for bringing that up. We did have a specific question for Xanatul, if you're still on the call.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes. Do you feel that teachers and administrators are educated enough on people from diverse backgrounds and beliefs?
I definitely don't think they are educated enough. I think that a lot of it's like it's not a requirement to be educated on diversity, right? It's not like it's not like if you're a math teacher, you're also required to, know the background and the ins and outs of a different religion or a different country. So it's so sad because a lot of times, teachers might make a joke, or especially at the Black at HCPS interim, you can see a lot of these students are experiencing the ignorance that comes from teachers not being required to be educated on diversity and equity. And so I definitely think that there can be more done for teachers to be educated on this. And there is a lot of room for improvement there.
Yep. Thank you. We have another question, and Jay Sean, this is specific for you. It kind of talks on what I just mentioned, but I do want to ask a question to you. What do you think about the diversity of this panel?
I feel like it was important for this to be diverse. At the same time, I felt really pressured and I had a lot of anxiety because I was the only Black panelist on here.
Yes.
So I feel like I had to make sure that I got everybody that I know of voices heard. So I just would have wished that it was maybe, some people
I
like
appreciate that. I appreciate that so much and hearing that. I honor that. Thank you for saying that. There was one other Black student that we wanted that we didn't get on the panel, but I want to say I appreciate you saying that to me, because I know that feeling too. I'm hopeful that we move into spaces where we can just speak from our personal experiences and not feel that pressure, but I know that pressure, and I'm sorry that you felt that today. So thank you for, again, using your voice and telling your truth. All right, I think I have time for maybe another question or two. I'm looking to see what we have. Give me a second, All right. If you had to provide just one call of action to HCPS schools around racial justice, what would it be? So I think that could be an opportunity for even each of our panelists. If you could just do one call to action to schools, what would that be? And whoever wants to go first.
just one.
Just one.
We can. So Black History Month in my school is, it's really bad. We didn't really have one. Our assembly got canceled, and yeah. So instead of having a month, I feel like it should be a class, to be taught year round, and it should be taught proper, and not that whitewashed true Black history, not African history. I mean Black history. I mean my history. I mean my art, my music.
Yes.
That's what I want.
Okay. All right. Xanatul, I see you on the screen, so I'm going to go to you next. Do you have one call of action that you would share?
I would definitely say, like, going off on what Jay Sean said, was that at Deep Run specifically, during Black History Month, we had a guest speaker, but it wasn't a requirement for anyone to join the assembly. It was simply like minority student union students and equity ambassador students who, if they had time during lunch, if they could jump into the meeting. And the speaker, I forget his name, but he's been doing great things for Chesterfield County, and he actually experienced the desegregation of Chesterfield County. So it was like super cool to hear him speak. And I think it's so important, like, if we're going to educate ourselves on these issues, then it's important that everyone is required to attend these events if they're available at the school.
Awesome. London, I see you. Do you have one call to action that you would share?
I have to agree with Santa Tool. We had something like that, but they didn't. We had a little assembly where, for if you were a minority, they chose you to go to this. So I agree. that if they are going to be teaching this, which they should be, they should educate more than just educate everybody instead of just a few people, because this is very important for everybody to know.
Thank you.
I agree with in that, like, education is at heart the solution. I think it should also focus on the present too, not just history, because with Black History Month and stuff, even if you learn all of it, it's easy to just believe that racism's over or that it's just like an individual thing. But if we learn about the systems that are still around today, then that would, like, if every student knew about that, then that would make it a lot better.
Awesome. All right. I do want to, and I did not share it earlier, but we have one of our counselors who's been here in the room, just as things may come up. One of our Highland Springs counselors. I'm trying to see if Christine is still here. Okay. Hey, Christina, how are you? I saw you popping in. You know, Highland Springs, as I have been on Twitter the last few weeks, I was so impressed to see how their counseling group really stood up and stood in and made themselves available. I think a lot of our change will really happen in our school communities. And so as we kind of wrap up, I just wanted to give you time and space to share out some of what you all have done. If there are other schools that are here that may want to glean and learn from that, just to share what you all have done and even some of the resources that you all have made available for your students and families.
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. The Highland Springs Counseling Department, we wanted to act fast. As I shared earlier when we were debriefing, you know, not to be funny, but we didn't want to wait on the county to put out a statement. We wanted our students, our families to know that we see what's happening. A lot of our counseling department identify as Black Americans. We're feeling it too, and that you're not alone. And so we put out a video just letting students know where we were, what our thoughts were, in addition to having very similar format to this, where students would come in and we basically just kind of spoke. They had their own questions that we had questions for them to respond to, and they also gave, you know, suggestions and advice. But kind of like the common theme, you know, yes, we want to provide these safe places, safe spaces for students to speak, but we also want to have those action steps. Young people are tired of us talking and making promises. They want to see, okay, you heard me, you're listening to me. What are you guys going to do? And as Jay Sean earlier, hi Jay Sean. He was my student when I was a first year counselor. I'm so proud of you, man. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
They want to see what we're going to do, and that's what I'm. You know, I put myself for the students and with the county. Like, hey, let's be a part of these action steps. I also spent a lot of time this weekend reading the Black at HCPS. I'm a graduate of Richmond Public Schools. Been reading the Black at RPS. There's now a Black at Chester. You know, it's a movement because these young people are tired and
Yes.
they need that outlet. And so, you know, we can't continue to say, oh, we're going to reflect, we're listening. We do that, but we need to go ahead and put some things in place.
Yes.
Have our students back. But but we also created some resources for our parents, our staff, and our students that are located on our school counseling page, and I could drop the link in the comments. I've just been sharing it with anyone who I've seen on like social media. Say, hey, how do I? Because you're never too young to talk about race. So we definitely have things for parents, or even with younger students as young as pre-K. So it's been a lot, but we've just been trying to be foot on the ground and just really working for our students.
Yes. Well, Christina, we say thank you. I recognized it, you know, even from a district, you know, space and the work that you all have been doing and just being available for our young people, you know. I think it makes a really long difference, you know, and again, that change really happening in our school communities. It really takes us all doing something different so that our students know that they're heard and cared for. I'll share the link also, but if you want to drop it in the comments, that would be amazing. And you all, I know it's 7:05. I just want to give a big round of applause, a thank you to our young panelists. We value your voice beyond just talking about it. I see some of the faces that are here in the room, and I know some things are going to happen from it. You know, The goal of these conversations is, again, we're logging the information, we're getting it to decision makers. You all are also decision makers as well. And so I just say, continue to drive the change. Continue to use your voice and use it loud. You know, if someone doesn't listen, tell the next person. But I think the beauty of right now, you have a sea of people who are not only listening, that are also positioned to respond. So Henry, London, Jay Sean, and Xanatul, thank you all so much for inspiring us this evening. And we'll be watching you all. I do want to wrap up with just a few links and just to recap a few things that were mentioned. If I can show my screen, I'm always challenged with this. Okay. So just a few things that were mentioned. Again, the HCPS Students for Change event is happening next Monday, June 29th at 6 p.m. I would say to stay posted. Once we get the link, we can make sure that we send it out. Oh, you just dropped it. Okay. See, they're working. Alexis just dropped it there in the chat if you all are interested. This is a student-centered event. So students will facilitate the conversations. Of course, they'll be in the breakout rooms. And we have some phenomenal staff that are going to be there to support, but it's really student-driven. Please spread the word about that. There also is a Henrico Justice Youth Protest that's happening this Saturday. And it looks like they've created a 6-point plan. There's been some advertisement and moving around that. So again, our Henrico youth are really showing up and showing out to make sure that their voices are.
Wait.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. But
Sure.
so for that protest,
Mhm.
the East End was not, we did not get any kind of we did not know about it. I had to find it out from my mother. So can we make sure that our schools on the East End also know about that and our students, because you can't have something without us.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. I'll tell you, I saw it on the news. You know, I was looking at the news and saw it that way. But absolutely, I think it needs to be inclusive. I think what Henry shared earlier is a great blueprint of how we work with each other to drive change, working amongst groups, working amongst students. I think the magnitude is so large. We're going to have to take the effort throughout the county, no matter where you are, to drive the difference. So thank you for sharing that, for sure, Jay Sean. And we'll make sure as many people on this call and emails that we have get it. And I think we need to be intentional about making sure that our East End students are aware of it as well. What you're seeing on the page now are really just some resources for youth and parents. If you're like me, you've seen hundreds and hundreds of things that have come out over the last few weeks. But I just streamlined it to 3 things. One, I wanted to uplift our school communities. And so there's a link for the Highland Springs High School Counseling. There are resources for parents, for young people, and for the community. And there's also an amazing video there that they have just to, again, continue to uplift their young people. So that's just on a school level. I'm sure that there are others. So this is just one example. I also have a link to our Department of Equity, Diversity, and Opportunity, our office that really lives in this work and really speaks to equity here in the county. They started early on with a few resources that are there. So I would say on a district level, you can start there to get information. And last but not least, I wanted to lift up just a Virginia organization that's really leading conversations around inclusivity, equity, and things of the sort. And so BCIC is really a go-to. If you go to their site, they have significant resources for parents, for teachers and staff, and just for caregivers, and also for young people. And so those would be just 3 quick recommendations about places to go for resources. Again, I just want to say thank you all so much for spending your Tuesday with us. I hope that you all have been as inspired as I am hearing from our young people. Our next session will be July the 7th, which is also on a Tuesday because we'll be out on the 6th. And our next topic is really focusing on parents. And so parents and families, their perspectives as we're navigating racial justice here in HCPS. I thank you all so much. I know we got in some questions that were not geared towards young people, but I want to acknowledge that we've received them, and we will, when we get to the appropriate panelists, we'll try to lift up those questions. But again, thank you all so much for being here, and let's continue to drive the change that we need. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.